Hello, friends. Welcome to Logistics of Logistics. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is Farelanes, real-time lane pricing for everyone with my friend Neal Huffman. How's it going, Neal?
Hey, Joe, it's going great. And thanks for having me on, man. I'm looking forward to our dialogue.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it too. So, Farelanes is spelled F-A-R-E, lanes. And what do you guys do over there?
Well, so we have a little bit of a play on the name of the company, F-A-R-E, but at the end of the day, you could also say F-A-I-R, but our website is F-A-R-E. But our play, Joe, is that we actually are bringing a pricing solution to the transportation market, and we believe it's fairly priced, right? So our goal is to literally remove the obfuscation that goes on in pricing a load from city pair to city pair by equipment type on any given day, week, or season of the year. And there's a lot of good solutions out there, but we believe we bring a unique approach to how we provide our data. And the industry is moving towards a data model, and everybody wants data. They want to be able to review it. They want to be able to churn it out and get the specifics that will help their business. So Farelanes is all about really bringing a real-time, accurate pricing view to the market for carriers, brokers, shippers, and factoring companies are our partners, but at the end of the day, they're clients. So that's our goal.
Yep. Neal, I told you before we hit the record button that I was just at Manifest, great conference. I saw your guy, Casey, there, Casey Larkin. And one of the things that I took away from Manifest, and it's not the only thing, and it just wasn't Manifest, I think we've all seen this happening, is it used to be if you had a freight broker, you would say to your freight broker, I want you to get me a truck. That was the expectation. If I was a shipper and I went directly to a carrier, I'd say, get me a truck. And I think increasingly we're saying, not only do I want the truck, but I want you to provide the technology that makes it easier, streamline that process. And now we want analytics. We want numbers that say, I'm paying the right amount. And I can say this, I worked at a lot of big companies in the past. If you and I were the logistics department and we were at a big company, let's just say a Fortune 1000 company, and they said, Joe, Neal, come in and let's talk about the prices all went up. What went on? And we say, well, this is what the freight broker told us, or this is what the carriers told us. They'd say, is the market go up, or did just the broker and the carrier working with go up? And we go, I don't know. I don't know what the market does. We don't pay attention to the market. The brokers and the carriers we work with, that's what they tell us. We would never do that to ourselves, or we might do it once and they get in trouble and then say, let's not do that again. And I feel like that is the expectation that we all have is, I want to be an expert in what I'm doing. So I can't say, oh, the way I figured out what the price is, they called 16 carriers and 16 carriers or 16 brokers and 16 carriers, and that's how I figure out what the price is. First off, you're wasting their time and they won't put up with it very long, especially if they're not getting work. And that's the way a lot of companies have kind of done it in the past. They're like, well, we got some tribal knowledge. We make a half a dozen phone calls and then we have a price. Why not get a little better about that and get some analytics from a company like Farelanes?
Yeah, so that's exactly what's happening in the industry. And Joe, the calls that we're getting on now are increasingly becoming more focused on companies that want access to that data. Just for that reason, they need the analytics. They need to know, are the rates going up or down? And I guess the beauty of kind of what Farelanes brings to the table is not every company can have a large IT department. Even the small brokers and the small carriers, they're all trying to figure out, how do I automate? How do I get insight? And so Farelanes is really focused on helping all layers of this transportation industry have the ability to look at our lane data and make critical decisions on their business, or where they should be looking at, or maybe where they should move their trucks across the country to make more per lane. So we believe we're bringing that type of capability to the space. And you don't have to have a big IT department. You don't have to have automated software. We will help provide that data from our solutions, and then you can make your decisions off of it. So we're seeing the same thing that you just talked about.
Yep, yep. It's not enough to say this is what I'm getting from the brokers or the carriers I'm working with. If you're a shipper, and then if you're a broker, let's face it, buying correctly and selling correctly is the whole business. So a little extra knowledge doesn't hurt. So tell us a little bit about you, Neal. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you started Farelanes, and then why did you start Farelanes?
So I actually grew up in Florida. I grew up with the beach and rocket launches. I was on the Space Coast and went to school in Orlando, UCF, go Knights. But I spent my first half of my career in telecommunications. I traveled the country installing software that I'd helped write at some military bases and things of that nature. I watched the telecom industry meltdown in the 2000 .com bust, and I literally transitioned to enterprise software. And I loved the fact that I learned about. I actually helped create a cloud solution before the cloud term was cool, and I started migrating more into the enterprise arena. And I spent the last 10 years of my formal career, or almost 10 years, I'd say, working at a factoring company in Fort Worth, Texas, and that's where I am now. And I really I got a heart for the business because of the company I work for. They really went out of their way to help their clients be successful, to provide them with solutions to help them do better. And I loved it. And I really became a fan of that mentality. And so what I helped them do was really roll out software solutions, a mobile app, a load board. And part of that load board experience was I would have carriers call me up and go, "Hey, Neal, I hate your load board." And I was like, "Why?" And they would say, "Well, you don't put a rate on the load." And I was like, "Oh, that's not me. That's the broker or the shipper." And then I traveled. My company was very gracious to me. They allowed me to travel the country, really meeting with brokers and some shippers on behalf of their clients, which were carriers. And I loved it because I met with probably 300 brokers and shippers over a 2 or 3 year period. And Joe, here's what I heard from these guys. They would go, "Oh, thanks for coming and visiting us. You're a factoring company, but we love you guys." And then they would say, "Hey, Neal, can I look at your lane data?" And I would go, "No." And so, because we didn't really have it in a form that they could look at, I actually talked to my owner, and he goes, "Hey, maybe we could move in that direction." And so we started doing that because there was a need, and the need was based on the current solutions. Listen, they're all good people out there and good solutions, but there was a lot of, you know, uh, hey, here's a lane and here's a load price, but it's plus or minus 20%, or we're not sure. And so there was a lot of lamenting going on about that. And so a couple of years ago, I have a partner, and he's a great technical guy and has done some great things in the industry, in the airline pricing industry. Well, we said, "Hey, you know what? What if we actually create a better solution for lane pricing?" And so what we did, Joe, was we literally we worked with my former owner, and he was very helpful in helping us get a start. But we've created a solution now that provides carriers, brokers, and shippers accurate lane pricing. We can say honestly, all that data that we have is accurate, it's real, it's not duplicated. So we're trying to bring transparency to the transportation industry for pricing a truck from city A to city B. And now, as you just talked about, everyone wants tech. And we can talk in a minute about how we do it, but we're excited. We're seeing a very good acceptance rate on what we're providing. And our goal is to help everyone in the transaction do better.
Yep. Yep. And I think, I always say these numbers that you can give us are just similar KPIs. It's the beginning of the conversation. So KPIs in them all by themselves don't do you any good, or lane pricing all by themselves don't do you any good. But it's a conversation that can begin, because I mentioned this to you before we hit the record button. Anytime I talk to anyone about pricing, I say, is it the price that the factoring company paid? Is that what the shipper actually paid? Because sometimes you say, well, this was brokered freight, this was carrier directly to the shipper. And there's a difference sometimes. And you're giving, and I also told you this. So we're both going to be at the Broker Carrier Summit coming up here in Indianapolis, and I think that is to try and have a better understanding between brokers and carriers. And one of the things I think is always a challenge is in a down market like we are right now, you have a broker gets a lane for $2,000 and then he gives it to a carrier for 1,800 or 1,750, and he thinks, oh, that's not enough money. We're not making enough money on this business. My boss can be on my tail for this one. And then the carrier's looking and going, God, I should have gotten a lot more money for this. The difference, though, is the broker saw the top line number. The carrier didn't. And he's thinking, that carrier is ripping me off. I know we could get a lot more for that lane. And I think that's where some of the animosity comes from, some of these relationships. But companies like yours are putting the information out there. And now you go, okay, you're the broker. You got that business. I know you're entitled to make some money. Good for you. And I also make some money. And I think, when you can put some transparency in there, maybe you can have some better conversations and some better understanding of who I'm working with and, and the money they're making or hopefully making.
Yeah. Well, so, just to touch on that a little bit. So in my load board days, this is a true story. I watched a couple of loads in the morning get posted on our board, and they were no rate. So if you, and a lot of guys use multiple load boards, and it's a lot of options out there to find a load. But what I watched was a broker post a couple of loads on our board, no rate. Probably by midday, they had a rate on them. And literally, I mean, I'm watching them over the course of the day. And by the end of the day, they had raised that rate 2 or 3 times, right? So now they're behind the curve. They have to get it out. They're running behind, they have to get somebody to haul it. So all of a sudden they're paying more of an expedited rate now, right? So that's challenging. It eats into that margin you talked about. But the other thing that that I want to tell you, this is I guess a true example. We have one of our clients, a broker, and she loves Farelanes. And she said, this is at the end of last year, she said, hey guys, and she was talking about me and my partner or whatever. And she goes, I actually have closed more business because she will take snippets of our data, which is accurate, and send it to her clients, which were carriers, and going, hey, this is the going rate for Farelanes. And she goes, Neal, we've closed more business in the last 6 months than we have previously, just because it was a fair price and it was the going rate. And she got the load covered and moved it quicker. So that just means she can move more loads, because it's like the airlines. When you go look at a city pair to go fly somewhere, well, you got the accurate price from all these different airlines. It's right there on the site. And so we believe we're moving into that type of a model for the transportation industry.
Yeah, well, they're the ones who started dynamic pricing. So it's very true. And we also notice when you sit on an airplane that if you asked anybody what they paid, no one seems to pay the same price for the ticket.
That's right. But again, they purchased that. They thought it was a fair rate. And listen, I still do it. Several times a year, I'm buying seats on an airplane.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. And I think getting back to what your friend, your customer, you're doing is sending snippets. I hear from people, they call me. A lot of times it's carriers or small brokers, and carriers often call me and they use this term, I just want good shipper freight, which is the euphemism for saying no brokers. and I think a lot of them think the brokers are making a lot of money. Right now, we know brokers aren't making a lot of money because we're at the level you're at. You know that because you see the numbers. But we don't. I've talked to a lot of people. It's not been a great couple of years. But if you're a carrier, you will oftentimes don't see what the shipper paid if it is brokered. But I think there's only 25% of the freight is brokered. So there's a lot of that is directly from a shipper to a carrier. But also, a lot of the shippers, especially if you're in a big company, but even if you're in a smaller company, you want to make sure that I'm not just getting the best price among the 6 guys I work with. I want to know that I'm getting the best price in the industry or close.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So again, our goal is to publish the rate on any given day, on any given equipment type, and on any given city pair, right? So we have billions of dollars of spend, just like some of the other players in the space do. But we are, again, we stand on that accuracy part. So, for a shipper, if they want to take on the kind of the management burden of getting, a truck backed up to a dock at a certain time to get that load, loaded on his truck and then make sure it gets delivered on time. Obviously, there's a cost to doing that. And so the market will basically normalize if a shipper's going to do all that process, or if they don't want to take on that overhead, they'll obviously broker it out to a broker. So we provide accurate pricing for whoever needs to make the transaction. And our goal too is to really, a factoring company, when they sign up a carrier, they say, look, carrier, go find a good paying load, run a credit check, and send us the paperwork, and we'll buy it. But a lot of the carriers, and it depends on how mature they are in the space, but there's always new people coming in. They're like, well, what is a good lane rate? Like when I had those guys call me back before on the load board days, I would ask them, I said, well, how much does it cost to run your truck a mile down the road? You need to make sure you're making money on that load. So don't take it for below cost on your side. And Joe, when I see a broken down 18-wheeler on the side of the road, I say a prayer for them, man, because I know they're going through a lot of money to get that truck running again. So our Farelanes mission, honestly, is to really provide that insight to everyone in the transaction, carrier, broker, shipper, and let them make a good transaction efficiently and move more loads.
Yep. So where do you get your information? Is it all from brokers, or so you have a lot of customers now? Are you also getting their information?
So good question. And another one of our tenants is we partner with banks and factoring companies, and we have exclusive relationships to pull in their data. We anonymize it. We're not looking to find out any insights on names and addresses. So, I mean, that's really an important aspect of what we do. But what we do, Joe, is we partner with factoring companies and banks predominantly, obviously. We don't pull in data from TMSs and listen, a lot of people say, hey, our data is clean and accurate, which is good, but we know exactly that our data is coming from a purchased invoice. It's singular. And so that's really the basis of our data set. And then we actually anonymize it. If there's an outlier, like if we see a lane that's normally paying $1,800 and we see a $4,000 load, an invoice come through, we pull it out because that's not normal. And kind of one of the things we're using that data to help do, there's so much fraud in this space, right? So what we've done is we've created a fraud detection API for the bigger players that want to use it, and they can validate the invoices that they're buying on the factoring side and say, oh, if I get an invoice from a carrier, and listen, I had lunch with a guy last Friday, a brokerage, and they lost a load. Some fraudulent carrier picked it up. A little different issue, but at the end of the day, the fraud goes both ways. So our whole goal is to help companies know if there's a potential fraud on an invoice. We have that API, and we'll talk in a minute about how we roll out our solutions. But that's really our goal. We don't take data from anyone but a factoring bank type partner.
There's an advantage there, and I'm going to talk to you about it. And we blabbed about it a little bit before we hit the record button, but 20-some% of freight is brokered. So a broker is getting a piece, right? So if a broker that's the broker's price is probably the price that's also factored, and that's fine. But if you worked with a carrier who has a lot of his loads went through a broker, his numbers might not reflect the price that the shipper paid because the broker took their piece. And so you have to segment that information. And I think that's always been one of the challenges in our business is getting data, is that brokered or not? Right? I want to know. But when you work with the factored numbers, that's what the shipper is paying. So
that's right.
That is,
well, the shipper and or the broker, right? So we actually have an AI based solution coming that'll pull out because on one of our solutions, and we'll get to it in a minute, but we have like a silver, a gold, and a platinum version of our product for a user. But on the gold and platinum version, we actually will share the actual detailed lane data. And if you look through it, you'll see some that you'll probably say, okay, that's more contracted rate. And this is going to be a pure brokered rate. So we're starting to literally delineate those types of lane prices. But predominantly, what you'll see on our lane pricing is what was paid for that lane on that day, time of year.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. And again, so often we don't hear it so much, but when we first started seeing solutions like yours, there was a lot of talk of tribal knowledge. And if you're trying to scale a company, you can't say, oh, well, I got Neal Huffman here and he knows what all these lanes cost. And then you try and open another office, and now people are where they're supposed to call Neal, and Neal's sick that day, or he took a vacation, and now what? Our business doesn't run. You can't. Wrong way to say. You can have tribal knowledge, and you should. But this is just giving more information, and so you might still depend on Neal, but you say, let's give Neal more information. We all want more information to make better decisions. And this is a tough business. We've gone ever since COVID. It's been a rough time for carriers. It's been a rough time for brokers. Good time for shippers. and um, and we've seen a lot of freight brokers. I think 5,000 freight brokers went out of business, according to my buddy Kevin Hill over at Brush Pass. And a lot of carriers have gone out of business. And none of the people who went out of business because they made too much money. They were probably underpricing sometimes, or not able to get the right price for the freight. And maybe you got to afford a product like yours to make sure you're actually making the money you're supposed to make on lanes.
Yeah, we believe that, there's a lot of things that have been upside down the last 4 or 5 years, right? And when people are making what you could say stupid money, then everybody's going to try and do it. So it overpopulates the players, and it doesn't take much to just run out of that margin profitability if you're not running your business, succinctly and accurately and correctly, especially on the carrier side. Again, it doesn't take much, and a carrier is toast because they didn't, they're getting inspected, they're getting shut down. All that stuff plays into it. It's a tough business. Our whole goal, Joe, is to take that payment side, that lane rate side, and make it easy. And make it so, hey, I got a lane rate. I put it wherever I'm going to put it, either it's on the phone to a carrier or it's out on a load board. You get your loads covered. We believe, if everybody is getting their business taken care of fairly, then they're going to move freight. They're going to have a margin, and everybody should make a margin, right? But it shouldn't be where you make 70% on one load and maybe 5% on another. Maybe it needs to be normalized, right? And just you have that market ticker, and it allows for that freight to get moved. It shows transparency, and everybody knows what their job is.
Somebody was on my podcast a few years ago and said this. He said, if you look at all the carriers and you said, okay, here's the average margin for freight across this lane or across the whole country for that matter. Well, let's just say median, not average. Half will be above it.
And half above, half below. Yeah, right.
And what if you're the company that is below? And then when you find out, oh my God, we're not just a little below, we're way below. What are we doing? And if you're a carrier, you might say, I'll tell you what we did. We have our trucks in the wrong lane. We're moving freight and we're serving customers, but there's too much competition in this lane. Let's move to these lanes because there's more money to be made. And that's the way the market is always supposed to work. But let's face it, we're all busy. We don't always have a chance to say, why am I not making more money?
So, Joe, listen, you bring up a great point. And we've added several features into our analytics portion that says, hey, I want to see the top paying lanes across the country on the last 30 days, just for that reason. So if I'm a small carrier with 30 trucks or 50 trucks or even 10 trucks, I can start moving them around based on where those high paying lanes are getting paid, right? So we have that ability to do that in Farelanes. And so our goal is to be able to provide that insight to our clients so that we give them every opportunity to make more money with their freight spend. And so there's other things that we're adding that we would love to share, obviously, more. But our whole goal is to provide analytics just for that reason.
Yep. And by the way, if you're a carrier and you do move and you start making more money and you don't need that money, you can just throw it away. So,
Right?
yes,
And wouldn't that be a
exactly.
good problem to have? It's like, oh my gosh, I made so much money this week. So again, we believe we're onto something. I mean, the calls we've had in the last couple of months, and like again, I just can't go back to echoing what you said up front. We're hearing from clients and potential clients about the need to have insight into this lane pricing dilemma, and it's been a mess, to be honest with you. But I think over time, we're trying to remove some of that
So we
fuzziness.
talked about the carriers. Again, if you're a carrier and you start using Farelanes, it can potentially help you understand what you should be getting paid for that lane, but also maybe it helps you say, let's get out of this. Let's get out of these 3 lanes that are not paying us enough. Let's find business over here. And by the way, you might also find yourself saying, hey, we we're doing pretty good. I like what we're doing here. You might be very comfortable, be a nice place to be. Now, when you talk about brokers, it's a very similar situation. Brokers are always interested in buying for the right price and selling for the right price. Uh, they need to know what that lane costs before they sell it.
Yeah. So just real quick on that, because one of the things also I learned, years ago is a lot of brokers, their business model is, man, they hustle in the morning, right? From 6 o'clock till noon, they are hustling to get those loads covered. But a lot of their clients will send them a spreadsheet in the morning and go, hey, Neal, I've got 20 lanes or 20 loads I need to move. And they're going to all these 10 different, city pairs. Well, that broker, he's got to figure out what is the right price for those different lanes. And they got to do it fairly quick because, their shippers have sent these spreadsheets out to probably 3 or 4 other brokers to say, hey, y'all compete. Well, we have a solution in our product called RFQ, and we literally can allow our clients, brokers, to upload a spreadsheet and come back with an accurate lane rate for the last 30 days on those 10 different pairs in probably 45 seconds, right? So the beauty is we can help them respond to their clients quicker with accurate lane pricing, knowing that, hey, that's what that lane's paying right now, and here's what I can do. And they can make a better, quicker business decision with their clients. And so we're excited about that. We have that in our gold and platinum version. And a lot of clients love it because it speeds up their morning process of getting their loads
Oh,
covered.
yeah. And by the way, also, I've done this, and I think it's frowned upon now, but where you're trying to understand what a lane costs, so you call a few carriers, and they don't like it when you're basically price checking. And now, if you're giving them a lot of business on a regular basis and they say, okay, all right, Joe, you can waste a little bit of our time because who knows, that might end up being something. But you do it enough times and they don't get the business because maybe they're not even competitive in that lane. You don't know that. You don't know. And you also don't know if you're getting a price that, hey, we're giving you a price. We don't really want that lane, but we'll do it if you give us a lot. And that's the problem with the old way of doing it. Is you're only as good as the phone calls you made and the connections you have in the business, but you're asking a favor and a big favor. So brokers who are making those phone calls, they know that that guy doesn't have to answer the phone. And maybe I've worn out my welcome because I asked him for 10 different prices and I haven't given him anything. And that's the problem we have. And nobody wants to waste time of their partners. So if I'm working with Fairlanes, you go, oh, now I kind of know what I should be paying. So I don't have to waste time and I don't have to make a dozen phone calls. The customer asks, boom, here's the answer.
Yeah, we like to say, hey, this is the Fairlanes rate, right? So you mentioned BCS earlier. Uh, I, yeah, I attended the one in Fort Worth. I loved it, and I really found that the and really it's carriers and brokers that are at the conference, right? They loved it because they're meeting with each other. They're looking for insight into each other's business to help each other. And so we actually did a few demos there. And here's what was interesting: we actually sat at a conference table in one of the ballrooms there, and we had some carriers there going, "Hey, I run this lane. Pull it up," and we would pull it up on our app, and they'd go, oh my goodness, I'm leaving money on the table, right? So they didn't know the last 3 days on a milk run from Menominee, Wisconsin to Chicago, and so having that insight is powerful. Now, again, that's our lane rate. At the end of the day, somebody's going to make a deal from the broker side and or the carrier side to say, I'll take it for that. I'll take it for $50 less. And the market, as it changes, we reflect that.
Right. Right. So we talked a little bit about carriers. We talked about brokers. Both are your customers. Now, shippers, why are they using Farelanes and how are they using it?
So we, for the same reason, right? So we touched on it earlier. If a shipper, has X amount of spend over the course of a year for their freight, well, they might rethink the business equation and go, hey, I can take part of that spend and I can manage it myself because it's more of a steady lane, like we touched on earlier. But now they'll at least have the insight on going, hey, this is what the rate is, and can I calculate that into my financials and make it worth my while to do that myself. It's really what that company's palatability is for managing that part of getting their products out to the market, right? So they have the same issues as far as cost control, truck costs and all that stuff. But the solutions that are becoming available on the market today, the TMSs with the integrated freight tracing. Now we talked to a partner or a potential partner last week, and they're like, hey, we need the lane pricing to add to our solution to do exactly that for the shipper side. So it's an interesting migration in this space, but every one of those tiers, shipper, carrier, broker, they want that data insight, which is what we bring to the table.
Neal, if you and I were responsible at a big shipper and we said, hey, let's put a trend line of what we're paying for all these different lanes, I'm pretty sure we would find a solution like Farelanes to overlay that and say, okay, how are we doing? And by the way, I always say the same thing. I just want to make sure I'm parallel. So if the rates are going down, I want to make sure we're just above it or just below it, but more or less staying parallel to that lane. I never want to find out that, oh my God, the market prices went lower and I'm still paying higher. And so when we go to see the boss and say, hey, here's how we're doing, he says, well, what's the market doing? And we go, it's right here at this other line. And he goes, oh, okay, so you guys are doing pretty good. Yeah. And then, by the way, if we're a little over it, you go, the reason we're a little over it, it's the nature of our freight. We got a lot of appointments on our freight, or we got a lot of lift gates, or whatever it is. We can explain why we're 2% over, or 5% over, or 2% under. It's the beginning of a conversation. That's what all this data is for us.
Well, it is. And so, a computer takes in stuff and then it massages it and then it spits it out. It's still data. But at the end of the day, somebody can take that and make informed decisions off of it, right? So one of the things we're excited about in Farelanes is on our gold and platinum versions, we actually have trend lines. And so the fact that we're every day taking in thousands and thousands of purchase invoices and populating our data sets, wow, that's really dynamic and fast-paced insight on the current market rates but across the country. And so a lot of solutions out there, they do predictive type of pricing. They do plus or minus, and some of their data is maybe a little bit aged, but you're not sure. And so we believe having accurate real-time data is going to be a game changer.
Yep. So I want to switch gears and I want to talk about if somebody's listening, if they're a carrier, a broker, a shipper, and they say, yes, this sounds good. This is what I need. What does the implementation look like? How long does it take from the time they call Neal to the time they're having good data? And how do you access, or how do they access it? Is it coming through their TMS or separate platform?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Good question. So the beauty is we have multiple ways to access our data, and it takes, minutes and minutes to actually install it, right? So we have a web app. It's farelanes.com. If you go there and click on it, you'll find out more about it. But we have a co-pilot solution that literally, if somebody signs up for an account like a carrier, they can run it off their smartphone. They could sign up and be running up in 15 minutes, right? And they can look up lanes all over the country on the smartphone. If they have a dispatcher or a back office, they can run our silver, gold, or platinum desktop. It's almost like a Bloomberg ticker. They can customize it. They can monitor lanes, 24/7. The data changes on the lane rates and all that. Now, if you're a bigger company, and we have partners that have their own IT back office solutions, we have APIs, we have FTP data drops, and we can sign up a client and have them working with our API in 30 minutes, right? So we're in production. We are now starting to have quicker conversations with partners and clients about them getting access to our data, and so we can support small, medium, and large type companies to really become intelligent about what lanes are paying on across the country.
Right. So I can access it in a number of different ways. You could put that in? Could I pull that in to my TMS if I wanted?
Absolutely. So we actually are integrated today with multiple TMSs, and what they do is literally inside the TMS when their dispatchers go to book a load or post a load, we pull up our lane rates on that lane, and they can. Again, they have the ability right then and there to say, oh, okay, it's Farelanes is this rate. Maybe they're going to go in at Farelanes minus 5%. That's up to them, right? That's the business side that they get to make the decision on. And so, yeah, absolutely. They have the ability to do that. And we're always seeking new partners as well.
Yeah. So if somebody's in a different TMS that you guys aren't currently integrated to, you might say, well, we'll integrate it now.
Absolutely. We would be happy to have that conversation.
Yes. And I should also mention that there are so many TMSs out there, transportation management systems. And I think virtually all the new ones are built with the idea that we're going to have, I call them the killer apps. It's the highways, it's the Farelanes, all those companies that you say, I need to track where my stuff at the visibility solutions. There's dozens of these killer apps that we have to add to our transportation management systems. And from what I understand, even some of the older legacy systems that have billions of transactions in them, not easy to update those softwares, but I think they've created integration layers so companies like yours can plug in.
Yeah, so that's a good point, Joe. I mean, what's fun to see is there's some, we call them middleware or integrator type solutions that help the old solutions kind of move into the new world order. And the ones that are new out there that have that API layer, and the API is a killer term, right? But it really simplifies the ability to connect with partners to provide more capability, more power to their solutions. And really that's our goal, is to be able to, and we're from the ground up, that's how we are. We're ready to go and happy to have the conversation.
Yep. So you said we can implement this very quickly. Is there training that goes with this, or is there rules? I mean, how do we make sure that data that they're now have access to, which seems like a powerful data set, how do we make sure we're actually using it in a way that's useful?
Yeah, so good point. So we've really designed Farelanes to be very intuitive, and so meaning that it kind of prompts you. And listen, the younger generation, Joe, they're miles ahead of me on how to use these apps, right? But at the end of the day, we do have some little short vignettes on how to provision this or provision that. But I guarantee you, it's easy to use and for the user. And then on the technical side, when you start talking about an API or an FTP drop or whatever, a little more technical, but that's an IT shop, and those guys speak the language. And so then it becomes a user interface or UI type integration on the TMS or their back office. But again, we're positioned to help them on either side of that.
It reminds me, my friend Ed was replacing a service parts ordering system, and his instructions to the IT team was, it will be Amazon. You will make it will look as much like Amazon as possible. And then he had all these distributors all around the world say, hey, when's the training? And he says, there's no training. And they were like, wait, we need training, because they were used to the press F8 to go to the cost screen, press F6 for this, right? And the clunky old systems. And so I think the expectations, and I haven't said it in a minute, but I'm saying it again, we expect consumer grade technology. And consumer grade technology, whether it's Lyft or the Domino's app, whatever it is simple. And I've said this to somebody not so long ago. I was at a conference, and I wanted an app that I wanted to download that would share my information from my phone. And I remember just sitting there watching TV, and I pulled up my phone. I was like, where's my glasses? I didn't have my glasses. I was able to buy that app, download it onto my phone without putting my glasses on. And I always think that is shocking because it used to be like, well, if it's compatible with my Android, I apologize to
Right.
Apple people. Um,
Yeah, that's
that,
great. I love the no glasses. That's something
but
new we could coin,
but
Joe.
that's
You
an
coined that.
expectation now. Is if
Yeah,
some
no glasses, turn
Yeah, and,
on.
and it's funny every once in a while when somebody says, "Oh well, uh, our app is on the Apple but not on the Android," you're like, "What? Like, what the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a killer. No, it ain't gonna work.
It's a funny thing though. We want consumer grade technology, which has to be intuitive, has to be very elegant, no extra steps. The expectations are different.
Yep. No, that's a great way to phrase it, man. I like that.
I didn't
I
make any of
can't.
this up. I listen to my other guests and then I say it like I'm smart.
Oh my goodness, I like that. So yeah. Anyway, well, listen. What have I missed in sharing? I
Well,
mean,
you
you tell
mentioned a
me.
few different packages you have. So, what are the different packages you have?
So we have basically there's on our web app side we have Copilot. We sell that for $9.95 a month, and that's for a carrier. We have Silver for $49.95 a month, and that's for broker, carrier, shipper. Everybody can use it, and any of the Silver, Gold, or Platinum versions that you buy, you automatically get Pilot access or Copilot. So literally, for example, if a carrier bought Gold, which we have, then all of their drivers can use the Copilot app off of their smartphone. It doesn't matter which smartphone they have. But so it's Silver, $49.95, Gold for $99.95, and then Platinum, which is all the extra analytics and custom reporting for $199.95 a month. And you can buy a year and get a discount. Oh, listen, it's fair. It's a fair price for
I
accurate
see
data,
what you
right?
did
That's
there.
yeah. See, we got there.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to summarize, and then I want to get your final thoughts on the topic. So I'm talking to my friend Neal Huffman, one of the founders of Farelanes, and we're talking about real-time lane pricing for everyone. So we talked about just the need for data, and it doesn't matter whether you're the carrier, the broker, or the shipper. Everybody has a need for data. It used to be just get me a truck. Now it's get me truck, get me tech, and get me analytics. And I think no matter what, those analytics are helping us make our businesses better. And I know we've seen since COVID, since the market struggled, I've heard the tech companies say it's harder to sell people this stuff because they're struggling, whether you're a carrier, whether you're a broker. But the big guys are spending during this time, and they are spending on stuff just like what we're talking about here today. So you need to spend the money on better analytics to make better margins. This is not, and by the way, your top of the line is $200 a month. It should make you a lot more than $200 a month.
Yeah, Joe, we think about it like, again, we have a heart for the one truck and a dream guy. But if the one truck and a dream guy can haul one load for an extra, $150, well, he's paid for Gold for that whole month, right? And they might run 10 loads a month. So just think about it. If everybody could, again, spend better, and that means maybe there are some margin drops on some of the components of it. But at the end of the day, if everyone's making their fair share, well, then everything gets, the freight gets moved, everybody gets paid, and they're all making money. And that's really the bottom line.
I think everybody wants to make sure they get an ROI on any investment they're making, and I think some of the things are no longer a nice to have. Whether it's visibility tools, you pay for them because your customers expect to have them. But something like this, where you just say, yeah, it could be the difference between one load. Maybe you find out, hey, I've been running my truck for $100 less per day for the last month.
Yeah. Ouch.
There you go. That was $1,500 that I lost because I didn't know what everyone else was getting. And that's the kind of information that you guys can give them. And I love it. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about, but before I forget, I will make sure I put a link to your LinkedIn profile, link to your website, and any links you and your marketing team give me. I'll put those in the show notes. So I know you're going to be at the Broker Carrier Summit, and that is in April in Indianapolis. What other conferences will we see you and the fine folks from Farelanes at?
Yeah, so we basically focus on obviously the BCS is new, but I've found it to be very powerful. But we're at the IFA conference for the Factoring Association.
Wait, what is IFA? What is that? IA?
International Factoring Association. So just real quick, I'll put a little blurb out here. We're working with a partner, and I won't go into the details, but we're literally moving into towards where we're creating a like more of a digital freight matching model to where we can actually say, hey, carrier, here's a load that's priced fairly, and we can start matching them up because everybody's been trying to do that for the last 3 or 4 years. I would say they've all met with some modicum of success. So we've got several other, strings of partnership going on that we believe will be a plus for the industry. But we have partners with factoring companies, and so we attend the IFA conference, and then we also attend the TIA conference because we're partnered with TMSs, and obviously the brokers is a big part of our component. So we those are the big three, and then we've got like we have some regionals like a Texas truck show and things of that nature that we attend and have really enjoyed the connection at the smaller regional type conferences. So we've got a few of those scattered out there.
I love it. So if we need to see you, we can see you.
Absolutely. And we're happy to have that conversation.
Excellent. Well, I love what you guys are doing. Again, it's just, to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, why wouldn't you have this?
Why wouldn't you? So, just to touch again, when I was in one small broker, it was like probably they had maybe 5 dispatchers and 2 or 3 other office personnel. This is in, I think it was in Indiana. And she goes, Neal, I've had to cancel one of my other subscriptions. And this is a couple of years ago, but I was like, at that point, I said, you know what? We've got to bring a better solution to this space. And so we're just now we basically incorporated in 2003, middle of 2023, but we're just now starting to roll out production, right? We've been in production for 4 or 5 months. And so we're excited about bringing a new layer of visibility, transparency to the market. And so, yeah, we would love to have a conversation.
Love it. Again, I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile, link to your website. Any other links you and your marketing team give me, I'll put those in the show notes. And Neal, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Look forward to future and seeing you in Indianapolis.
Exactly. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward.
You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.